that does them because I think their website. Hold on, let me see if I pull up their website. I think the website is wearebond.com. But they've done, I mean, just this list right here on the front page is House of Gucci, The Batman, Jungle Cruise, Suicide Squad, The Green Knight, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Space Jam, Luca, Boss Baby, Ghostbusters, Infinite, Reminiscence, Snake Eyes, Army of the Dead. I mean, it's just every major movie that comes out, these motherfuckers have done a poster. Tenet, they did a poster for that. They're pretty dope. Yanni yan yan. And the best part is, Joe, if you're wondering, you can actually order posters from them.
Oh, that's cool.
And you can get all the
website.
Yeah, wearebond.com.
Wearebond.com.
Yep.
That is quite the poster right off the bat. Mm-hmm. Literally.
Yep.
It's Batman, the Batman. Oh, The Green Knight. I never even watched. I meant to watch that movie.
Yeah, I still want to watch it. But yeah, they do a lot of posters for a lot of things: video games, movies, TV shows. I mean, all sorts of stuff.
Wow, they really do.
Yeah, they are all over the place.
All sorts of stuff. Oh, Battlefield 2042.
Yep.
Oh, you can get that print. That's dope.
Yeah, it's pretty cool what they have on there.
Cool. I'll really have to go through. Oh, look, Anthem. I'll totally buy Anthem stuff.
As long as it's the Neil Blomkamp Anthem stuff.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
Nah, I think it's a video game. But yeah, they do a lot of posters right now. Pretty much every major movie that comes out, they have posters for. They're pretty good.
Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. No, I don't want to watch video. No video.
Yeah, you do. No, Joe, you told me a minute ago you wanted to watch the video.
Well, I mean, I would want to watch the video, but I also don't want to watch the video.
But no, the thing is, you do, though.
Oh, fair enough. I do, I guess.
See? There you go. Boom. Speaking of videos, Joe, comes naturally. We are
Joe.
I am Cody. Welcome to the show, everybody. What are we talking about today, Joseph?
A little movie, indie movie you might have heard of called Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Oh yeah. It's gonna be fun, everybody. I guess we'll just start where we normally start. Is what did you think?
I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. I thought it had a little bit of a pacing issue at the beginning. It seemed like you had two different movies kind of moving along each other at the beginning there. You had the movie where it was basically them, moving into the small town, and for some reason, all that shit was just like, boom, 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 boom. Let's a victim. Okay, now they're at the house. Okay, now Finn is trying to hit on this girl. Okay, now they're trying to, Phoebe's trying to find a friend. Okay, we're trying to do this. But then when you went on to the ghost stuff, everything seemed to slow down. There was the weird thing with the chess piece. There was the her finding the PKE meter and slowly walking through the house. I think at the beginning it had a little bit of a pacing issue, but that was only like 30 to 40 minutes. After that, everything just kind of collapsed down into the ghost movie and was perfectly fine after that. So that would be my only complaint of this movie, because everything else was maybe nostalgia goggles, but it's a fantastic fucking movie to watch. Visually impressive. The sound is absolutely amazing. They take a lot of the sounds from the original movie, move them over. love the way it starts, which is with that little piano just doo-doo-doo-doo, like at the beginning of, I think both Ghostbusters actually did it. You know, right when they're getting into the Columbia Pictures logo, just doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. So absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed this movie. If I had to say what my 3 favorite things are about it, man, it's so hard to pick what they were. I would have to probably narrow it down to the nostalgia factor. Everything that you saw, as soon as you saw it on screen, it was just like, oh my God, that's the PKE meter. And it was changed just a little bit, you know, over the years because it seemed to have like a ghost taser on the end of it. The proton packs were like, that's so awesome to see the proton packs, and you get so much more of a detailed look at them in this movie. It feels like you even get mirrored scenes from the original one, like, you know, when you have the scene where Phoebe is putting on the proton pack for the first time, and her friend Podcast is like, okay, switch me on. It's literally from Ghostbusters, you know, when they're still standing in the elevator and he says, okay, switch me on. So many scenes like that. The next thing that I really enjoyed about it, God, man, the visuals, I guess, of it were just absolutely amazing. Like I said, they pulled stuff from the original film, even down to the way that the spirits looked. You get a look at that, especially at the beginning of the film where Egon dies, which I have a question for you, because this one bugged me throughout the movie. How do you think Egon dies?
I think he dies of natural causes, but I think it's more of fright than anything else. I think the terror dogs, they're not trying to, unlike when you normally see the terror dogs, they're not trying to capture a keymaster or a gatekeeper. I think they're literally trying to kill him because he's trying to stop them. But I think he literally, like, I was thinking about this actually late last night when I was laying in bed. It almost felt like it was suicide in a way.
Yes, that's the way I came away with it. Like you, I think I was debating back and forth. Like, okay, he could have died of fear. He could have been killed by the dog that was chasing after him, whichever it was, either the gatekeeper or the keymaster. But ultimately, it was like, yeah, but why would he activate that ghost taser? And that's the thing that kept bothering me. That's the last thing you see before it cuts to the scene of the outside of the house. I believe you see like a flash, and then you see his soul leaving. And the only conclusion that I could think of was that he uses the ghost taser on himself and essentially kills himself to prevent. I mean, yeah, sure, maybe the demon dog would be trying to kill him or try to possess him because he knows where the location is of the trap.
Yeah, that has the other terror dog in it.
But if he kills himself, then the terror dog doesn't know where that trap is.
Yeah.
So that was the conclusion I came away with, and I thought that was like really, it's sad on the one hand, but it's also very heroic as well, you know. But that was that's what I came away with it. I was wondering what your take on it was.
So I kept thinking, like, the reason I thought it was suicide is the way it happened. Obviously, like, he died in the chair, nothing happened to him, blah blah blah. We've seen other people get killed by ghosts, and it's not exactly like he's just peacefully sitting in his chair. What made me think it wasn't suicide is the taser thing on the PKE meter. I think was to drive off the terror dog that was going after him. And I think he literally had a heart attack in that moment. And so it wasn't suicide. And the thing you see leaving the house was just the other terror dog, like basically running away. and probably going to tell Gozer like, "Hey, bro, I done messed up. Dude died. I don't know what to do." And I think that's why I don't think the thing leaving the farmhouse, the dirt farm, was Egon's soul or spirit or whatever you want to call it. I think that was the terror dog that was chasing him, that he was trying to trap, because I think it is very much like they were doing at the end of the movie where Gozer was coming after him. But they didn't have a soul yet, so the terror dog, which obviously can go out from the temple and the thing by itself without being part of Gozer and all that fun stuff. So I think that was what I was like, did he commit suicide? Because that's super dark, if that's what it was. But then I was like, I think what happened is, like, I think his old age just got to him. He's been pushing himself too hard as of lately, obviously combating this and putting a lot of stress on himself because he burned all of his bridges and nobody's helping him. And we obviously saw the fruits of his labor, an old man doing all that stuff, being a dirt farmer, but also constructing all those, all that machinery inside the temple itself, and building the giant trap and the big things, literally all by himself. And everyone kept saying that, like, he's by himself. Like, I think it was, he literally gave up the ghost. Like, he died at that moment, and it just set things in motion. But I think that they were trying to obviously get him to figure out where he put the trap at. So I don't think it was suicide. If it is, and it turns out that's what it is, if someone answers that, that's pretty fucking dark. But
right?
I mean, it's Ghostbusters. It's not exactly, they're busting ghosts and people do die in it. So, so and so forth. But I love this movie so much. I'll be honest with you. I went in kind of expecting a trash fire.
Really?
The only reason why, not because I didn't have faith in them making it, I just thought they were like, I didn't know where they were going to go with the whole story and Egon's family and blah blah blah, and I was worried they're just going to try to push too much or not enough or something. I don't know. I was like, man, I really hope. I told this to Paige before. I was like, man, it's either going to go. Well, it could go one of three ways, really, but I was thinking one of two ways. I'm either going to think this movie is blah, like this didn't do enough, and they just tried to make a Ghostbusters movie with kids, or they were going to knock it out of the park. There was the only two ways. It was just going to be either this lackluster affair of they just couldn't recapture magic or recreate magic, or they did what they did and it was magical, and I had all those same feelings that I did watching Ghostbusters originally, or every single time I watch Ghostbusters. There's this excitement. There's like this. It's super funny. The characters are they're larger than life, but they're also very human, and they're making mistakes and they get emotional, and things like that. And I thought that the kids were fantastic. Finn Wolfhard is pretty much goddamn amazing in everything he does. McKenna Grace, I think is her name. I guess I could pull it up, but I'm not seeing it. She was fantastic in it. That kid podcast. Hold on, where are the names?
Played by Logan Kim.
Yeah, Logan. He's like, I don't know where he came from, where they found him, but he was phenomenal. He was such a he was, and I said this to Paige too. I felt this was after watching it, and my brain stopped speeding around. It's in my skull, and I could form thoughts of my own. I literally I said this to her last night. I was like, this was like if they took Goonies and Ghostbusters and just went bleh.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, especially with him. I do wish that they would have given him an actual name rather than just calling him Podcast, giving him, hey, my name is blah, 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 but you can call me Podcast. Because I drew the exact same conclusion. I was like, it feels a little bit too much like Goonies when you meet the character Data. And it's like, as far as I'm concerned, his name is, I don't know if his name is actually Data or if that's just a nickname, because I don't think they address it throughout the whole entire Goonies movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just it's funny too because I can remember, I think you were with us actually when we were at Target I think it was at Target and we saw the toys, and I was like, this kid's name is Podcast. Like, what the hell? Like,
Yeah.
you have Trevor, you have Phoebe, you have Lucky, and then you have Podcast, and I was like, I know this is like 2021, but I'm pretty sure nobody names their kid Podcast. But I could be wrong. There are some pretty weird names out there.
Right.
But in the movie, he explains it, but doesn't say what his name is. You know, because he's like, my name is Podcast. Like, people call you Podcast. Like, I call myself Podcast, and I was like, okay, so obviously it's a moniker, but it's not his name. And to your point, what the hell is his name? But it also goes to the whole thing where at one point you never realize that they say what their last name is until they embrace that Egon's their relative. Like, and who Egon is. Like, they mention their grandfather, her father, blah, blah, blah. Never once mentioning the name Egon. Obviously, it's a story element because her and her father, Egon Spengler, are estranged, so she doesn't really talk about him to her children because they're never going to meet because obviously separated and blah blah blah. But it's interesting. Obviously, she at one point was married, so she probably had a different last name. No longer married, as we find out. Did she take back Spengler? Or did she keep the other name? We don't know because, like I said, you never hear them mention a last name until they embrace Egon as their relative and they say, my name is Spengler. I'm Phoebe Spengler. Blah, blah, blah.
Technically, they're like you said, she would have been married, so if she would have taken her husband's last name, their last name wouldn't have been Spengler. So yeah, that makes sense. Along that route, though, not to sidetrack you, hopefully too long. The other part of the thing that I didn't really care for, and I wish they would have explained a little bit more, is Egon's wife or whoever that would have been.
Yeah,
I feel like they literally didn't even gloss over it. It just was absent. And I really wish that they would have explained that because to me that feels like a gaping hole because you literally have Ray, who admittedly doesn't have the most accurate of information himself because he says that the firehouse has been turned into a Starbucks, but by the end of the movie we see that it hasn't been.
Yeah.
But he literally makes it seem like they caught all the ghosts, Egon started going crazy, packed up all this shit and left. And it's like, okay, where in there did he have a family? You know, obviously he left when Callie was young, still old enough to really remember him. But at no point in time did they talk about his wife or her, or her mother in that respect either.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it felt that was part of the part of where I said that the pacing at the beginning felt weird. That was part of the part that I had a problem with the pacing, where it's just like it's not even that they glossed over. It's just that they just that's not going to be part of the story.
Yeah, there seems like there might be some cutting room material. At one point, maybe, I don't know, but yeah, I think it's probably a lot of that was left out, probably due to time. Not that the movie is like super long by any stretch of the imagination. It's a whopping 125 minutes, so basically 2 hours and 5 minutes. And those 5 minutes essentially are the two last scenes. It's the stinger scene and the end credit scene. So yeah, that's basically it. But I think being at 2 hours, they probably had to cut we'll say some fluff out of it. And I think the story, the actual plot of the movie was concise. I mean, it was there. Egon, obviously, they want to lead you into a little bit of mystery of like who this no-faced person is. Obviously, for us Ghostbuster fans, we know who that was. And I like the way they basically shadowed his appearance. And you only saw the profile shots. You could tell it was definitely Egon. Then obviously when he was the ghost version, they digitized his face and did a fantastic job at it, if you ask me. But and they didn't have to have him speak, which is really good, because obviously he has a voice that's very iconic to Egon, and I don't know a whole lot of people who sound like that.
No.
But I think there was probably some stuff they cut out, and it was interesting, and you bring that up, and I actually thought the same thing, is the only mention of the ex-husband or the father, which actually we don't even know if they were technically married.
No, they don't. I don't believe that they.
I don't think she mentions husband. I think she, Gary, obviously, mentioned when they're on their date, Paul Rudd mentioned, or he asks like, what about their father? But I don't think he ever, and I don't think she ever said husband. So it could even be a thing where the reason their last name is Spangler is because they were never married.
Yeah, could be true too.
We don't know. That's story stuff we don't know about. We could speculate, and my speculation would be that exactly. They were together because she seems like a free-spirited kind of woman who doesn't really have her life together well. So I could see her not being married. But also because the dude just takes off after
he doesn't really connect with Phoebe.
Yeah, with that. Yeah, I was going to say, what was the term she said? Didn't connect with Phoebe. He just bounced, and that to me doesn't sound like a divorce. That sounds like you know what? This isn't working out for me anymore. I'm going to pack my bags. I'm going to head out. Which clearly wasn't a thing that the kids were that affected by, even Finn, Trevor, because he seems to be siding with his mom this entire time. Even though they don't get along, because he's obviously, he does snip at her a couple times about moving to this middle of nowhere.
But his performance in this movie, which would be my third thing that I really enjoyed about this movie, like you said, is all the performances. His performance, Finn Lockhart, like that literally reminds me of what my nephew would be like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not out of character for him to just be like, God, we're moving. Why? It's just like, God, you're such a teenager. You literally sound like my nephew who is going through that right now. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's. I mean, obviously he's playing those roles. He played a role of a preteen, a teenager in Stranger Things. Obviously, in It Chapter 1 and 2, a little bit in 2, mostly in 1. And obviously he's in other things too, where he's playing his age or around his age. The little things I like about his character in this was he's smart, but also he's real dumb.
Yeah.
Sorry. Shouldn't say that way. He's smart, but he's naive in a dumb way.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
He's not book smart like Phoebe is. Obviously, he's a little more person smart, unlike Phoebe. He is more likable. He can adjust and adapt to making friends, even when people are making fun of him because he made an ass of himself. But obviously, everyone ingratiated him into the group, and not just because Lucky invited him, but obviously they were joking around with him and stuff like that and having a good time. But you could see he's smart in a way where he was able to fix the car. Obviously, he probably was thrown into that with his mom not being able to have the most money in the world to fix their car, because you see that on the road trip that he's the one taking care of the car when it seems to have some kind of problem. You see him obviously working on Ecto 1, getting it up and running from, I'm sure, a completely dilapidated state. It was probably in that fucking dirt barn for forever. Hey, speaking of which, did you notice, and I don't know if it was me reaching for things, did you notice the diorama in the underground firehouse, is what I called it, of the barn?
I'm trying to think. I can't think of anything particular, no.
All right, so if you remember, if you think that this isn't spoiling anything for anyone, we've already spoiled a bunch because Egon died. Just kidding, that was in the trailer. when you look at the farm, the dirt farm, and you see the barn has dirt written on it, which is funny that people say that, but it's actually literally a reminder of the old man. Like he's just trying to remind himself, like it's the dirt is like the whole thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's the barn is collapsed in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the diorama, he uses a lunchbox, like a metal lunchbox with I always refer to him as the bullet lid because it's shaped like a bullet. And it's in the diorama as well. It's dented in, just like the barn is.
Yeah, I can't think of that I noticed that, but that I would expect because that diorama was, I mean, it looked like the house.
Which I thought was pretty cool. The other cool thing, too, is, to me, they didn't go beyond reality, when I say this, with the technology that Egon had. It was all stuff that he created when in the first movie and the second movie. Just obviously with the remote control trap, obviously it's a little different than he had before. The proton packs were nothing more elaborate. The gunner seat, all it was literally you could see that he strapped one of them to a seat and then had a mechanical arm, which isn't out of the question of having a thing that exists.
Right.
Nothing was crazy. And the reason I brought that up is I really thought they were going to jump the shark with the trap in the farm. I thought it was going to be like a big trap, and what it turned out to be was just a bunch of traps buried in sequence.
Right.
And I was like, that's so smart of them not to be like, oh, he turned the farm into a trap. No, he literally just Rambo'd this. He literally buried a bunch of traps in the ground and then have a power source to boost them together to make one big trap out of them. And it wasn't like he just, because at one point I was like, oh, the generators are gonna like shoot an arc of the proton and like it's gonna be real bad. But they didn't do any of that. They kept in line with the science, air quotes, science of the movie and the world they're in. Nothing was outlandish. Like there wasn't, anything, like there wasn't like a turret that popped out of the fucking farmhouse that shot a proton. It was even in the temple, and I kept thinking about this. He just strapped the proton packs to those pillars, and then aimed them so that beams would cross and force the ghosts back down.
Right, and along that train of thought, there was only two things that were new in the movie, and both of them were right around the PKE meter. Literally, you had what I kept calling the ghost taser because it looked like a ghost taser, and then the giant PKE meters at the top of that hellhole, which was absolutely clever. That when I realized what that was, it was like, oh my God, that's amazing because you have this presence that is coming up. It's almost like a continuous version of the thing from the first movie where they had to reverse the streams in order to push everything back in. Where in this case, like it gets to a certain point, the PKE meters detect the psychic energy there, and then those proton packs essentially just cross the streams, push it back down.
Yep.
I'm like, that's such a kludge thing to do, but is so awesome to watch.
Yeah, it was just so well done because they, like I said, they could have made some elaborate machine that he built that like kept doing it, but no, he literally took everything he had. That's and it explains in Ray's rant about him to Phoebe, is he took all the equipment, he took everything with him, and now we know why. Is this wasn't just a spur of the moment thing. Like he's like, oh shit, nobody's listening to me. And Egon's not exactly and Phoebe is the same way. They don't use their words properly to express themselves. And that was how he was in the first movie and the second movie, obviously in this movie too, is his brain is so big that his emotions aren't in balance the same way. He's just too smart for his own good. And when he essentially snaps and he feels the pressure of all of this collapsing, and he went to them and he started saying, and he didn't have the backup of Winston or of Ray or even why am I
Venkman.
spacing Venkman?
Venkman.
Yeah, Pete, to essentially translate his words out like the giant Twinkie, right? Because he starts to explain things, and then Ray has to say to Winston, "Imagine if you had a Twinkie the size of, a bus or whatever, New York." That's what he's trying to say. He just was so overwhelmed that he couldn't do it, and Phoebe did the same thing in this movie. Is she just got too ahead of herself, and she was not relying on anybody else because she doesn't know how to communicate with anybody because she doesn't have that support system. And it was a cool parallel because, like, obviously there was 4 of them and there's 4 of them and blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really cool thing, and I just thought it was a very well done characterization of keeping that, like, because Trevor was nothing like Egon, Phoebe was exactly like Egon, but if you look at it, Trevor is tall and gangly like Egon.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But has his mom's free spirit and probably a little bit of his dad in there too, being kind of a borderline scumbag in a way. Not a bad scumbag way, but like he's just trying to get the lady type thing. Very Pete Venkman of him.
Yeah.
And obviously the Lucky being the one African American character, which I thought was pretty cool. That they kind of had that parallel to it, but also was a girl, so that's cool too. Mm-hmm. And little things like that were just really fun. I haven't even said anything that I loved. What the 3 things I love this movie so much. Like, it's hard for me to say like I love this. And the pacing thing you said, I felt that same way. And I thought, and like I said earlier, I think it was just their way of getting to the point of the movie as fast as they could without bogging too much down with, like, I don't want to say story, but you know what I mean, like, without having tried to explain everything that's happened. They just did it in little different ways, like the whole where their dad at, where, and to your point, yes, I would kind of like to know what happened to Egon's wife, or at least the mother of his child.
Yeah.
You know, because
where he was at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. Is she obviously she's probably dead, unfortunately. And at what age exactly did Egon flee to Summersville? Which obviously we now know he didn't abandon them. He was literally protecting them because he knew what he was going up against, and he didn't want to drag a child and his wife into this potentially completely dangerous situation, as we saw, because they were the ghost, the power he was fighting against was even so much that I think he even protected the other Ghostbusters by not bringing them into it as well, which is obviously, again, an Egon thing to do because he couldn't really bring it to them, and even I think it was Winston even said if he would have just called, he's like, if you would have just called, I would have been there. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. And I might guarantee you Ray was the same way and Pete was the same way. Mm-hmm. If the call comes out, which it did, obviously, by Phoebe, because she calls Ray, Ray's occult books, and Ray obviously sensed something was wrong. Egon's granddaughter reached out to him. Egon is now dead, and there's something going on. Let's call the boys in, and let's crack up a cold one.
Was pretty funny. I'm pretty sure that she got the phone number from the ad, which means that Ray kept the Ghostbusters phone number this whole entire time.
Yeah, because it was the red phone from Janine's desk.
I thought that was just funny.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could switch phones all you want because the phone would have been tied to the actual station, but the fact that he transferred that phone number over to Ray's Occult Books, and maybe he just took it over as Ray's Occult Books. I don't know.
I
thought that was funny. Or he has that line just in case.
Yeah, exactly.
Something happens that they can reach him.
Yeah, because as things slowed down, obviously he probably went back to working at his occult bookstore, which he had before. But he always had that, we need this number because, like, we are the Ghostbusters, and if someone has an emergency that needs busting of ghosts,
and he would be that character to always have the light on just in case. Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool. I thought that was a great way of explaining the gap in the two movies, or three movies if you want to. I like the fact that they didn't try to bury the second movie. They just didn't mention it because it doesn't technically have anything to do with the story of 1 and 3, or 1 and Afterlife, which is really cool because the slime and everything like that had nothing to do with Gozer. That was a whole different thing. So I like the fact they didn't try to like. I mean, they didn't mention it, but obviously, like those events. They didn't say in the movie. They didn't really specify like what exactly happened, but they didn't also say that the 1984 event was the only thing that ever happened. They mentioned how they kept busting ghosts more and more, and eventually they got them all.
Out business.
Yeah, you know what I mean. If you exterminate all of the cockroaches, and you're in a cockroach exterminator, you know what I mean. You don't have any business. So. Yeah. If you bust all them ghosts, you ain't got no ghost to bust, and you ain't got no business. Right. So, I just thought that was a cool thing that they didn't try to like erase the fact, because everyone's like, oh, Ghostbusters 2 wasn't that good. Fuck off. First off, Ghostbusters 2 was fantastic.
I love that movie too.
Now, mind you, I will agree that the whole walking Statue of Liberty thing is a little bit ridiculous, but we're also talking about a movie called Ghostbusters where.
Right.
3 scientists in Winston-Zeddemore bust ghosts in New York. It's already ridiculous. And by the way, did you watch the first one when a giant Stay Puft Marshmallow Man was walking around New York? No, like the Statue of Liberty walking. Granted, I think it was technically the wrong size, but whatever. That's not even that strange.
Right.
Like it's just not that bizarre to think that the Statue of Liberty would help them, because in the context of the movie, not to get super fucking into it, the context of the movie is they need good vibes to fight against the negativity, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Statue of Liberty is a excuse me, is a symbol of pride and like positivity, like the free world. You know what I mean? That of course would be the thing you would use to fight against the ultimate evil. So it makes sense. Right. It's just weird that it animated and walked through the town, but
and it was controllable by an N64. No, what was it? It was
Super Nintendo.
Super Nintendo, like an arcade stick.
Yeah, because slime has a way to just attach to any. It's like an ultimate adapter. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's only 9 pins or something like that.
Yeah,
you can totally control slime with 9 pins.
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever.
Anyways, so I loved it because it was. One is it, like I said to you last night, they paid the perfect amount of homage, where it didn't feel like they rehashed everything. With obviously it has a lot of the symbolism and the parallels to the first movie, and in the second movie too, because obviously they were a full team then. They did a lot of things that were new, which was really cool because you always want to have things new. What I thought was actually cool, and you'll laugh when you hear me say this, is the two of the things they did in this movie is the two most used things new technology-wise was the gunner seat and the remote control trap, which are both from the cartoon.
Yeah. And
it's just cool because technically the cartoon is supposed to be a sequel, even though it's trash. And it was produced and written partially by, or created, not actually written, produced and created by Dan Aykroyd as part of it, which is pretty cool. So I thought that was, an interesting way of doing it. But I thought that bringing something from the cartoons over just was a cool way of doing it. And the gunner seat was pretty fucking rad, if you ask me. The one thing... excuse me. My throat is really dry from all this yammering on. The one thing that I really wish we would have seen, and I understand why, but is the sliding rack with the proton packs on the back of it. And obviously he probably decommissioned that portion of it, but it would have been pretty cool for them just to kind of like just swing the door open, that slides out, get the proton packs on, and we're ready to fly. But, whatever.
It would have been cool to see, but it's not.
It didn't ruin anything for me.
Didn't ruin anything for you. Shit, there was something else I was going to say. I don't remember. Anyway, finishing off the 3 things that you liked and one surprise. For me, I was surprised actually how much Egon was in the movie.
Yeah.
You see him at the beginning, which I think was an absolutely fantastic introduction, but like you said, you don't really see him. It's just a character cloaked in darkness, but you understand it to be him. And I honestly thought, well, that's pretty much the end of it. You're setting up the movie. You don't really need him after that. You may see a picture of him here or there, but but that's pretty much it. Which, thinking about it, I don't even think they had an actual picture of him in anything.
No, because
you see the ad, but that's all I can think of.
Yeah, it was just the commercial they made, and then the archival news footage of the event in New York. But yeah, you never see anything because you realize, obviously, she doesn't really have any love for him, so she doesn't have any photos of him around. Right.
But I mean, like, you don't even see like a picture of the team sitting on his desk or anything like that would include him. That's all I mean. Like, just some sort of like in the background weird picture or something like that he would have of him and the team, or him and somebody else. But yeah, to actually see him so well rendered as a ghost.
Yeah.
Like, they obviously, I don't. He died pretty old, I guess. Harold Ramis. So I guess they probably do have a lot of reference material that they could have gone off of for aging him up, or at least making him look age appropriate for the film. But it was so well done. Like you said, I love the fact that they made it so that he didn't talk, so that they didn't have to try and find somebody or even like string together audio to force it into this movie. They show you, and you can get away with not having him look exactly, as real as possible, because he's a ghost. He's mostly like a bluish tinty color, but you just get a good general outline of what he looks like. And then I love that we got that archival, quote unquote, footage at the end there. Spoiler alert, because that's the after credit scene.
Yeah.
That was the after credit. Yeah, that was the after credit scene where you see him talking to Janine, and instantly I'm like, this is either like better than Disney bringing somebody back from the deadness CG, or this is real footage that they had and they just didn't use. And of course, after the fact, I asked you pretty much that question, and you said that no, it is actually real footage that they had from the first movie, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. It was when they were going off to fight Gozer the first time.
Gozer. And yeah, it was just cutting room floor stuff that they have a ton of this type of footage, just cutting room floor, and they just use that. And I was like, that's so fantastic to see. So yeah, that was my one surprise thing, is how much he was actually in the movie, even though he's, Harold Ramis has been dead for quite a while now.
2014. He was 69 when he passed away. Just looked it up.
Yeah.
To your point, finish actually saying what I was saying. I love this movie so much. It's hard for me to pick out 3 things that I say I love, but I'll just pick 3. And they're probably going to be pretty fucking bland. I like the visuals. They were stunning. They did such a good job of practical and digital all at the same time. The terror dogs looked great when they were practical, but also looked really cool, because this is the first time we got to see them in any other form than just the terror dog. Like, and the transformation, by the way, was horrific to watch a second time. Because
horrific, but like still very accurate to the first movie.
Yeah,
like,
that's the cool part. Yeah,
more in CG, but it was like there. You have Carrie Coon and Paul Rudd, just like flailing in the air, and it's like it looks kind of ridiculous, but it also looks exactly like it did in the first movie. It's just more CG than practical effect type thing. It was really cool.
Yeah, it was just horrific because like you see their bones with the electricity, and then you can see them like expanding, and then it's like boom, an arm turns into a fucking terror dog arm. And I was like, don't show this to kids. What's wrong with you people? That's terrifying. But it was just cool. I like that. I like the ghost or the pictorial version of it when it pops out of the trap and you see the terror dog head and the body's just the smoke and things, and then it just even when the ghost, when the terror dog comes after Egon in the beginning, the smoke or fog, whatever you want to call it, comes in through the fireplace and then forms into the shape of the terror dog, and it's super cool to like see it, like they're like just leaning into the whole like this is what this is. It's nothing else. It's always this. You know, it's not like a shape, like this isn't the form it chose to pick. It is always this. It's the statues. It's all that stuff is really cool. The mini Stay Puft Marshmallow people, which were menacing but also adorable at the same time. Yeah, they're wrecking machinery, but they're so cute doing it.
They're literally just gremlins in this movie because they're just having fun, just destroying stuff and themselves.
Yeah.
Just like when one of them impales two of them and then just
barbecues them,
puts them over the grill, was like, it's hilarious but so disturbing at the same time, because in the background you're watching one of them go like, oh, a hat, and it starts walking across the grill as it slowly melts.
And just happy the entire time. They're just happy no matter what.
Yeah.
And until a force like the PKE taser explodes them and essentially kills them, like it eradicates the spirit within them or whatever, and they just turn in, which was a great homage also when Podcast gets out of the back of the Ecto-1 and he's covered head to toe just like the rest of them were at the end of the movie. The only one that wasn't was Venkman, but that's because Bill Murray didn't want to be covered in fucking shaving cream. Yep. Which is actually a very Venkman move of him, so that's pretty good. But yeah, I thought it was pretty cool that he just like comes out completely utterly covered, a lot like I think Ray was, and then Ray
was pretty well covered. But then he walks up to, in the original movie, he walks up to Tully and is like, you know, you've just experienced one of the mass news, blah, 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 blah. And he does the same thing in this movie. And it's like, goddamn, it's fucking hilarious to see the parallels in that. And then you find out, oh, wait, you're whatever podcast was. And he's like, oh, are you my one subscriber?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really thought you hit the show hit the ground running at episode 46.
The show really found his voice in episode 46.
Yeah.
I was like, God damn it. That is so good of a weird callback, but also like just a great joke.
Yeah.
Because like, of course, Ray subscribes and listens to a fucking podcast about weird shit all the time. And it just happens to be the one that's in the main focus of the evil and stuff like that. It just makes me laugh. It's just like, that is such a Ray thing to have happen.
Right.
So good. So I love the visuals. I mean, just the visual effects, the practical, even like the fact that a lot of it is like a callback and an homage, stuff like podcast being covered in the fluff, which is really cool. The other thing I love too, I think, was like the story. And I said this to you last night, and I think I said it to Paige way too many times, was my brain was trying to spin down from being overexcited. I love the fact they did such a good job tying the two plots together so well. And it comes to the point, there's one line in it, which if you know Ghostbusters, you obviously key onto this early, but for anyone who's not, later on in the movie, they say where he used the selenium beams to make to build a high rise in New York. And earlier in the movie, they talk about that's where they got Summersville is where they got the material to make those girders to build the
the tower, in
the
New
tower.
York. Yeah,
You know, and I thought that was really cool. Just like that, right? That sequence of lines and scenes tie those two. Like, why Somersville? You know what I mean? Like, why did Egon choose Somerville? He didn't choose Somerville. He did his research and found out that's where Shandor was from, and there's a reason why. And then he chose New York because of the, you know, the weakness, what do they call it, the membrane between the ghost world and our world, blah blah blah, is weakened there, and he can use that to his advantage. And it's just a really cool way of doing it. But also, I love the fact that they expanded on the world they built in that first movie with even having him in it, because he's technically never been in the movies. He was in the video game, but he's never been shown. A picture of him is never, but he's known as the leader or member of the cult of Gozer, and he obviously has spent his fortune making, we now know, more than just a tower. He also built a town on top of a mine that he used to make the girders for the building he was using to bring Gozer across. I thought that was just so well done. And that's the only. I truly believe this. The only reason that worked as well as it did is because it comes from the creators of the first movie. You know, I mean, it wasn't someone trying to extrapolate things. It's Jason Reitman working with his father, with Dan Aykroyd, in the world that's they built from the ground up. And it's a loving touch used across to bring that in, which I thought was really cool. But also, it just shows that they care about it enough to not just throw something together to make it, but really use all that story they had in the first movie and then make the plot circle around that as well. And that's just me thinking that, but
no, I agree.
Third one, I said earlier, it's the performances by everybody. Carrie Coon as Callie was fantastic. She's just, you know, single mother who's just trying to do everything she can, but obviously she's not very good at things like being a mother or being a caregiver. She was fine as a mother, really. But you know, she's struggling with money and she's struggling with keeping a job, probably because that's what it seemed like. Then you have Paul Rudd, who's this like fish out of water, but like seems perfectly fine where he's at. You know what I mean? Like he's teaching summer school in this shithole town in the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma, and he's loving it because he's just showing the kids random horror movies while he's doing his research for his seismology stuff. And then the thing that there's two parts in this that made me love Paul Rudd even more than I already do as a human being, as an actor. And it's the utter and complete believable shock he has on his face when Phoebe starts talking about the seismology map and all this stuff, and like and he's like, wait, hold on, what, you're smart, like what's going on here? You're like, he's flabbergasted. He's like, why is there a smart kid in summer school in Somerville, Oklahoma? Like, why none of you shouldn't exist in this school. They're all idiots. Like, look at them, they're completely enthralled in child's play. Why do you know these big words? And the other one is his complete and utter joy of all things Ghostbusters, down to like when he sees the trap and he's like, oh my God, it's real. Like you can see him going from, it's a good Epica, to just being completely locked in and like geeking out. And then like showing them the ad and the news, the article or the news about the actual attack in New York. He's just giddy about it. And then when he gets to use that, like try to open that trap, he's just like, let's fucking go. He's like, I've always wanted to do this for like all my life. And all he wants to do is hit that fucking pedal. It's so good.
Right.
Those two things, just like, he's so great in this, but those two scenes, which are like just the greatest performances he's ever had, is just the utter shock and the completely geekiness has just made me love it so much. So the performances are by far, I think they're fantastic. Everybody in it was amazing. And then the thing that surprised me, and I think it was the same thing you said, was not only I knew they would have to have Egon in it somehow, either from archive footage, photos, whatever. But have him in it was a bold move, but also very well executed. Because you could you could make him look really terrible, trying to make it look too much like Harold Ramis, especially if you saw Harold Ramis. He was a little bit chunkier later in life, as we all get that way. Older we get. That's what I blame. But they also could have never shown him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they had the shadowy figure in the beginning. They could have. I knew at one point. I shouldn't say at one point. I figured it out. Once he started guiding Phoebe by moving things, lighting up lights, at the end I was like, oh, he's gonna help them, and we're gonna see him. I just don't know how much we're gonna see him. Are we gonna see a Ghostbuster ghost version of him? Like, he's gonna be like a puppet, which I thought would be a terrible idea. But they did a really good job of recreating him, and looked amazing. And I think the technology they used to make him ghosty really helped sell the believability and likeness of him, because it needed to be a little otherworldly, but enough to, like, if I showed you a picture of that, you'd be like, holy shit, Harold Ramis, that's pretty cool. If you knew who Harold Ramis was. If you didn't, you'd be like, is that Egon, but like older? So I thought it was really well done, and I was very pleasantly surprised, but very surprised, to your point, how much Egon was a presence in this movie, but also like used in this movie. He wasn't just at the beginning, at the end. He was a guiding force for Phoebe the entire time, and at one point I legit thought it was a different force, and then it dawned on me, oh, but so far this force, like when I say that, I literally thought it was like someone trying to get Phoebe to open the trap and let the terror dog out, when really he was just trying to guide her to what he was doing. It was her misguided like thought process to take the trap away from the house, where probably Egon probably couldn't leave. He couldn't leave that area because he was essentially haunting.
There's nothing to say that he could. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, but it's kind of goes in the ghost logic, is he is literally there,
bound to that area, to that house,
to where he died essentially. Yeah, I just thought it was really cool, and I was like, I'm gonna tell you the truth. I cried at the end of this movie as soon as his hand forms on Phoebe's to hold the proton gun, as they kept saying.
The wand, yeah.
The wand still on Gozer. I was like, tears were running down my face, and I was like, and they were like happy tears, not like, oh my god, I can't believe they ruined this movie tears. I was so emotionally attached to that scene for no other reason than the fact that I love Ghostbusters, because it's not like, oh, I'm projecting that's my grandfather helping, no. It was just a cool, awesome scene where, like, I love Ghost. I mean, if you saw me yesterday, I was wearing a Slimer shirt and Stay Puft Marshmallow socks to watch a movie that's been out for almost a week, because I love Ghostbusters so much. And I can't even tell you how many times I've seen the first movie. Countless times at home, as well as a few handful of times in theaters. But I was just so emotionally attached that I literally broke into tears until halfway through the credits, when they finally dried on my face.
They managed to there, which was pretty cool. They still I felt the same thing there as well. Like you get the impression, because the original Ghostbusters show up and they try and help out, but crossing the streams doesn't help in this case. But I don't think it was done in the similar way that it was in the first movie. That's why it didn't work. Whatever. But the fact that she throws them all aside, and then Phoebe shows up behind her and starts busting or starts throwing. Activates the proton pack. I can't think of what the action is called right now. And Gozer, basically force lightnings, out her hands. and then Phoebe's being pushed back, and then that's when Egon comes and steadies her and holds her. It's such an emotional thing that's just like, God, this is like, it's cool to watch, and it's such, like you said, it makes you want to cry because it's so happy, emotional type thing. But then they have the gall to have the rest of the three Ghostbusters start throwing beams as well, and Winston to look over and be like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
There's Egon standing right there. You just see him elbow Peter, and Peter looks over and is like, I knew you were going to show up at some time. And Ray looks over and they're just all looking at him like, what? It was funny. It was hilarious.
It was a great moment because like my favorite part about that is like Winston's like legit got the willies. Like our good friend who's now passed away is
right there,
right here. Like I literally can see him, and then like Pete, as Pete always is, was like sarcastic and is like, I knew you'd show up eventually. And then Ray was just like, there's Egon, and then you see him go, wait, what? Like you see him, he sees like, oh yeah, nonchalant, and then it goes,
yeah,
what? Like it's just so great, and it's just like just goes to the fact like they care about those characters. And there's an emotional thing because, like, obviously they were all friends with Harold Ramis. They all worked with him several times. And having that, like, reunion was just a fantastic way of doing it. And it was so well done. I think it was well done. I mean, I could be wrong. Again, maybe I'm just nostalgic and stupid, but it was just felt so good.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever.
To close this out.
Yes.
Do you think, based on what we saw at the end, I just want to ask real quick, do you think that basically Winston became rich for whatever he did? Because I don't think they really mentioned what he started a business and then it went international. This basically went and got all the money. Personally, I think that he was secretly funding not only Ray, because they do make mention of that he was keeping Ray afloat, the bookstore afloat, but also Egon through Janine?
Yes. I think that's what they were hinting at is like she says like he could barely keep the lights on, like paying the bills with money, blah blah blah. Because I literally think that Winston was bankrolling not only Ray but also Egon, because the fact that even though Egon essentially turned his back on them, there was that connection between Janine and him, obviously. And it's just like Winston, who literally you saw the kind of character he is in the end of the first movie, because shit goes fucking south. They get arrested. He should have been like, I'm out. I don't know these dudes. This is a part-time thing. No, dude, he was all in. Like he's a hero. He's a good dude. And he just seems like that kind of guy where like, he didn't turn his back on anybody. And it goes to the same line where he talks about his kids and his grandkids to show them you can do whatever you want. And it's just kind of like, that's how good of a dude Winston is, that he would secretly help pay Egon's everything, and not to be like, hey, Egon, here's a blank check, do whatever you need to, but I'm gonna give you enough of backing and in a way secretly away from anyone's eyes, just so you can either prove yourself right or stay stay as sane as possible. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It was just a cool way of doing it, and the fact that there's that weird, and again, it could be like just a faux pas in the movie, but I really think it's more of like a Ray says that the firehouse was turned into a Starbucks. I think that's more of a catty answer than the truth, and I think obviously when you see the end credit scene and Winston opens the door and they drive the Ecto-1 in, and then it shows the containment unit. Obviously, it's trying to lead you to think, hey, if this does good enough, maybe we'll make a sequel or 2 or 7. which I'm completely fine with now that I've seen this one. Let's bring it on, because you should really just like make a connection to the second movie with the next one. I don't know anything, but yeah, I think that's exactly what it was. I think it's, without telling us exactly, that meeting between the two of them was just a telltale sign of like, yes, it's exactly how this went, how this all fell through over the years. Is Winston would never let it go, and he was a good enough dude to say, hey, you know, I have the means. I can help him, even though he doesn't seem to want our help. And I think that's just the way. I think that, to your point, yes, I think that's what they meant by that, without having to say Winston was like, well, I wrote all those checks because of this. They didn't have to tell us that. They just gave it to us in little story bits and let us go, hey, you know what? I think that's exactly what happened. And I think that's exactly what happened. And I think that's how they did an amazing job doing it that way. And I love the fact that Dana and Peter seem to be a thing still.
Right?
That's just amazing to think about.
I do like where they placed that too, because it's like, you know, Sigourney Weaver, and I was like, she wasn't in this, and you were like, wait a second, and then that mid-credit scene hit, and I was like, oh, that's hilarious, guys. And it's funny, I didn't know that was a scene until we were watching the credits, and I pulled up After Credits, the app on my phone, to look at the stuff that's in there, and it has spoilers on there, which at that point doesn't matter if I spoil it because it's within seconds of me seeing it. But I saw that it said Dana, and I was like, oh, shit. I was like, that's cool. I can't wait to see the scene. And then I saw her name pop up the credits, and I knew you were going to be, like, baffled, so I looked at you. And I saw the, like, wait a minute, what? Like, she wasn't even shown in, like, archival footage for the most part. Why would they put her in the credits? And then I'm like, wait. Boom, it happens. I was like, that's so great of a moment, and that scene is fantastic. Yeah, it is fun. Just so well done, and, like, the fact that, you know, like, both of them wanted that scene, and they probably both love doing that scene, and that probably scene lasts, in the movie we saw, 2-3 minutes at the most, but they probably shot like an hour of footage for that scene, because, you know, they both hammed that shit up. Yeah. So well done. Anyhow. I think that's where we'll wrap it up. It's a good point. So if you guys are listening to this and Ghostbusters is still available to watch in theaters, highly recommend watching in theaters because it's fantastically shot and works and just beautifully on big screens. But also check it out when you get a chance because it's well worth it, especially if you're a Ghostbusters fan who's not one of those, like, I hate everything Ghostbuster fan, because fuck those people. But it is by far the best thing you could ever hope they would do to reboot sequel type thing. Because it's both those things in such glorious fashion, and it's amazingly well done, and I cannot stress how much I loved this movie. I agree. But yeah, that's it for this year's episode of Comes Naturally. We have been Joe. I have been Cody, and as usual, you fuckers just came naturally. Bye.